Fleet Commander Jarix studied the blue planet below his ship. His three eyes tracked the data streams, flowing across his command display. Earth, a primitive world with basic space travel and no unified government. The intelligence reports said it would fall in 6 hours, maybe 8 at most. His fleet had conquered 47 systems in 18 cycles. This would be the easiest victory yet. "Begin the invasion," he ordered. The Krath fleet moved forward like a dark cloud. Hundreds of ships descended toward the atmosphere, their weapons charged, ready to disable the human satellites and defense platforms. The first wave struck at exactly 0600 hours by human time. Plasma cannons lit up the orbital space, and within minutes, the human defense network went dark. Jarix watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Human space stations exploded in silent flashes. Their communication satellites tumbled uselessly through space. Ground targets appeared on his screens, and he designated them for bombardment. Military bases, government centers, power stations. The attack was precise and overwhelming. "Deploy ground forces to all major population centers," he commanded. "Prepare for surrender negotiations in 4 hours." The landing craft descended through Earth's atmosphere, carrying thousands of Krath soldiers. They wore powered armor and carried plasma rifles that could cut through steel. They had fought rebels and resistance movements on dozens of worlds. They knew how conquered populations behaved. First came shock, then fear, then acceptance. But something felt wrong from the start. The first landing zone should have been chaos. Humans running in panic, trying to flee the cities. Instead, the streets emptied too quickly. Buildings went silent. The Krath soldiers advanced cautiously, their sensors showing heat signatures but no movement. It felt like walking into a trap. Then the humans struck back. From windows and rooftops, from alleyways and basements, weapons fire erupted. Not just military weapons, but everything. Hunting rifles, homemade explosives, even vehicles modified to ram Krath walkers. The humans weren't running. They were fighting. Jarix frowned at his display. Increased pressure on all fronts. They're simply in denial. Break their military, and they'll surrender. More bombardment fell from orbit. Human military bases turned to rubble. Their air force lasted less than an hour against Krath fighters. Their navies sank beneath coordinated strikes. By all logical measures, humanity should have been broken. But the resistance didn't stop. It grew. Hour 3 brought reports that confused the Krath officers. Human soldiers who ran out of ammunition didn't surrender. They picked up rocks, pipes, knives, anything they could use as weapons. Civilians joined the fighting instead of fleeing. One report described a human child, no more than 10 cycles old, throwing a bottle filled with burning liquid at a Krath squad before disappearing into rubble. This doesn't match any known pattern, Jarix's intelligence officer said, his voice uncertain. Conquered populations don't behave this way. They should be seeking shelter, trying to survive. These humans are seeking conflict. Jarix dismissed the concern. They're simply slower to accept reality. Maintain the assault. But our 5 brought something the Krath Empire had never experienced. A distress call from a landing ship. Request immediate evacuation. The pilot's voice cracked with something that sounded like fear. Ground team is gone. They're all gone. The humans, they just kept coming. We ran out of plasma charges, and they attacked with metal bars and stones. One of them, he was shot 3 times in the chest, and he still kept fighting. He destroyed our weapons cache before he died. These aren't soldiers, Commander. These are monsters. Jarix reviewed the casualty reports with growing disbelief. Krath forces had secured their landing zones, but couldn't expand beyond them. Every street became a battleground. Every building hid fighters. supply convoys that traveled between positions, lost vehicles to ambush. The humans used their knowledge of their own cities like a weapon, turning familiar territory into deadly mazes. The timeline estimate changed. 12 hours to capitulation. Then 18. Then 20-4. Human communication channels, still somehow operational despite the orbital strikes, filled with defiant messages. The craft translators struggled with the words. Many were simply profanity, anger expressed in hundreds of languages. But some messages were clearer. One broadcast kept repeating, "They came to our home. They hurt our people. We don't care about their ships or their weapons. We'll fight them with our hands if we have to." Another voice, calm and cold. "You wanted Earth to fall in hours. We're going to make you pay for every second." Jarek studied the tactical map as day one ended. The craft controlled roughly 30% of their target zones. Casualties were at 15%, higher than the entire previous campaign. UN forces had reorganized from scattered resistance into coordinated groups. They were learning craft tactics and adapting to them. "This isn't possible," Jarek muttered to himself. "They have inferior technology, fragmented leadership, no unified command structure." His intelligence officer pulled up historical data from the human networks they'd managed to access. What he found made his blood run cold. "Commander, you need to see this. Human history. It's nothing but war. Thousands of years of constant warfare. They've been fighting each other since before they discovered metal. They have hundreds of words for different types of combat. They teach their children about historical battles. They make entertainment about warfare. They've never stopped fighting." Jarek scrolled through the data. Wars that lasted years, decades, even centuries. Weapons that evolved from stones to nuclear fire. Tactics that range from honorable combat to total devastation. Humanity had spent its entire existence perfecting the art of killing. "They're not resisting conquest," the intelligence officer continued. "They're doing what they've always done. They're at war, and they're good at it." The commander looked at the blue planet below. Earth was supposed to fall in hours. The humans had taken it personally. And now the craft empire faced something it had never encountered before. A species that actually knew how to fight back. Asterisk by the end of the first week. Jarek no longer spoke of hours or days until victory. The craft empire controlled only the ground their soldiers physically occupied. Every attempt to expand met fierce resistance. The humans had transformed their cities into fortresses, their streets into traps, their entire world into a weapon. The casualty reports climbed steadily. 20%, 25%, 30% of ground forces eliminated or cut off from supply lines. Ships that descended to provide support returned with damage from weapons that shouldn't have been able to reach orbital altitude. The humans were adapting impossibly fast. "They've modified anti-aircraft systems to target our lower orbit craft," a tactical officer reported. "They're using our own power cores from crashed ships to boost their weapons range." "Commander, they reverse-engineered our technology in less than 5 days." Jarek paced his command deck. This shouldn't be happening. The craft had conquered advanced civilizations with spacefaring capability. Earth was supposed to be primitive, easy. Instead, it was bleeding his fleet dry. The intelligence teams worked constantly, trying to understand human psychology. They intercepted broadcasts, interrogated prisoners, analyzed every piece of data they could gather. What they discovered was disturbing. "Sir, we've identified a pattern in human history." The lead analyst presented his findings to the command staff. "They have a concept they call total war. When truly threatened, they don't just deploy their military. They convert their entire society into a war machine. Every factory, every resource, every citizen becomes part of the war effort." Jarek studied the historical examples. Places called Stalingrad, where humans fought over a single city for months, building by building, room by room. Vietnam, where a technologically inferior force exhausted a superpower through sheer persistence. Britain, an island nation that refused to surrender even when bombed daily. They don't calculate acceptable losses the way we do, the analyst continued. They have a different mindset. They take casualties that would break any other species, and they use those losses as motivation to fight harder. They call it blood price and vengeance. They don't ask if they can afford to keep fighting. They ask if the enemy can afford what they'll do next. A communication officer interrupted. Commander, we're receiving a broadcast on all frequencies. It's from a human military leader. The image appeared on the main display. A human male, his face scarred by burns, one eye covered by a bandage. He wore a damaged military uniform and stood in what looked like a ruined command center. Behind him, other humans worked at makeshift equipment. To the Krath forces, the human spoke an accented but clear Krath language. You came to our world expecting an easy victory. You calculated our defeat in hours. You were wrong. We don't care about your superior technology. We don't care about your empire's reputation. You attacked our home. You killed our people. Now you're trapped here with us. And we're very, very angry. The broadcast cut to images of Krath soldiers in combat. Humans attacking with improvised weapons. Civilians building barricades. Children as young as 12 cycles carrying supplies through ruins. The human general appeared again. We've been fighting wars since before you discovered space travel. We know 1,000 ways to kill, and we're learning new ones every day. You wanted Earth to fall. Instead, you're going to fall. Every single one of you. The broadcast ended. Silence filled the command deck. He's bluffing, Jarg said, but his voice lacked confidence. They can't actually believe they can defeat us. 3 days later, the Krath learned the humans don't bluff. The first coordinated human counterattack came without warning. Not in one location, but everywhere simultaneously. Resistance forces struck supply depots, ambushed patrols, and destroyed communication relays. They didn't attack where they were strongest. They attacked where the Krath were weakest, forcing them to spread even thinner. In Tokyo, humans emerged from underground tunnel networks behind Krath defensive lines. In New York, resistance fighters brought down a landing ship using construction equipment modified into improvised siege weapons. In Mumbai, the humans had created explosives from common fertilizer and destroyed an entire Krath command center. They're not fighting defensively anymore, a tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. They're hunting us. Jarx reviewed footage from helmet cameras of fallen soldiers. What he saw chilled him. Humans moving through urban terrain with practiced efficiency, setting up kill zones with perfect precision, using every advantage their home planet offered. They fought with a creativity born from desperation and something else, something darker. Spite. Pure, focused hatred for the invaders. The humans had stopped shouting and cursing during battle. Now they fought in silence, with cold calculation. They transformed from desperate defenders into efficient killers. Krath soldiers reported that the humans moved like ghosts, struck like lightning, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Request permission to implement orbital bombardment protocol, Jarx's second-in-command suggested. Break their major population centers. Destroy their will to fight. Jarx hesitated, then authorized it. Perhaps heavy civilian casualties would finally break them. The bombardment began at dawn. Plasma cannons reduced city blocks to ash. Thousands of humans died in the initial strikes. The Krath waited for surrender. Instead, humanity's response was unified and terrifying. Every human broadcast, every intercepted communication. Every prisoner under interrogation said the same thing. Remember, the attacks intensified. Human forces struck with increased precision and decreased mercy. Several Krath officers committed ritual suicide rather than face capture. Rumors spread through Krath ranks about what humans did to prisoners. Though intelligence confirmed the humans actually followed rules of warfare strictly. But fear didn't need facts. Fear fed itself. By day 30, something unprecedented happened. An entire Krath regiment refused deployment orders. They chose execution over facing the humans again. The soldiers spoke of an enemy that couldn't be broken, couldn't be frightened, couldn't be stopped. Jarix convened an emergency meeting with his senior staff. They faced an impossible choice: commit the entire fleet to this single planet, risking everything, or withdraw and admit defeat. During that meeting, alarms screamed throughout the ship. Hull breach! Multiple hull breaches. We're being boarded. Jarix's display showed the impossible. Human craft, modified cargo shuttles and civilian vessels had launched from the surface. They'd attached to his ships like parasites and burned through the hulls. Humans in captured Krath armor were now inside his fleet. The humans weren't waiting for the Krath to decide their fate. They were taking the fight to space. Earth was supposed to fall in hours. Instead, after 30 days, the humans were winning. Asterisk. The human boarding party hit the KMV Sovereign like a natural disaster. Jarix watched security feeds in disbelief as 30 humans in stolen Krath armor fought through his capital ship. They shouldn't have been able to breach it. Their assault craft was a converted cargo shuttle held together with welded plates and hope. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, but they moved through the ship like they'd trained for it their entire lives. They knew the layout from captured data. They used Krath weapons taken from the dead. They advanced with a coordination that suggested years of experience, even though humanity had only known of the Krath's existence for a month. Seal Section 7, Jarix ordered. Pump it into vacuum. The humans have sealed themselves in, Commander. They're wearing combat suits. They've accessed our environmental controls. The tactical display showed the human advance. They weren't trying to reach the bridge. They were heading for engineering. Within 2 hours, they'd seized control of the ship's power systems. A message appeared on every display throughout the Sovereign. The same scarred human general from the broadcasts. Fleet Commander Jarix. You have 1 hour to surrender your ship. If you refuse, we'll overload your reactor and detonate it. We know you have escape pods. Use them. We're not interested in prisoners anymore. We're interested in sending a message. Jarix looked at his officers. Several refused to meet his eyes. They're bluffing, he said. Detonating the reactor would kill them too. His intelligence officer, the same one who'd studied human history, spoke quietly. Sir, they've done it before. Multiple times. They have a word for it. Kamikaze. Humans who deliberately crashed aircraft into enemy ships, killing themselves to destroy their target. They consider it honorable. That's insane. Yes, sir. But humans don't think like us. They believe some things are worth dying for. The hour passed. Jarix didn't surrender. He couldn't. The Empire didn't surrender to PRIMIT. IVES. The human general appeared on the display one final time. Wrong choice. Abandoned ship. Engineering erupted in alarms. The reactor began an overload sequence that couldn't be stopped. The humans had done something to the containment systems, something the Krath engineers couldn't reverse. They had exactly 4 minutes before the ship exploded. Evacuate. All hands, evacuate. Escape pods launched like seeds scattered in wind. Jarix watched from his pod as the Sovereign, a ship that had led the conquest of a dozen systems, detonated in a flash of light. The human boarding party made no attempt to escape. They'd sacrificed themselves to destroy a single ship, but they'd done more than that. They'd proven they could reach the fleet. And humanity had hundreds more volunteers willing to do exactly the same thing. Over the next week, human boarding actions struck a dozen Krath ships. Not all succeeded, but enough did. The humans learned from each attempt, adapted their tactics, improved their equipment. They launched from hidden bases, used stealth approaches, and struck at targets the Krath thought were safe. Ships that tried to flee found themselves hunted by human pilots in retrofitted civilian spacecraft. Humans flew with reckless abandon, pulling maneuvers that should have killed them from excessive force. Their modified ships shouldn't have been able to catch Krath fighters, but human pilots squeezed every bit of performance from their machines, sometimes dying in the attempt but taking Krath craft with them. "They're not fighting like rational beings," a ship captain reported to Jarix. "They take risks no sane pilot would attempt. They don't care if they survive as long as they complete their mission." Jarix finally understood something fundamental about humans. They weren't just willing to die for their world. They were eager to, not from despair but from conviction. They believed their cause was righteous, and that belief made them terrifying. The Krath War Council contacted him directly, their faces displaying the emotion closest to horror in Krath physiology. 42 days, Fleet Commander. 42 days, and you haven't secured a single primitive world. We're losing ships. We're losing soldiers. The other conquered systems are watching this. Some are talking about rebellion. End this now. Asterisk, how? Jarix asked bitterly. They won't surrender. We can't defeat them without destroying the planet entirely, and that defeats the purpose of conquest. They're everywhere and nowhere. They strike from space now. We're not invading their world anymore. They're invading our fleet, then withdraw. The Empire doesn't retreat. The Empire also doesn't lose entire fleets to primitives. Withdraw and call it a strategic redeployment. Blame it on unforeseen circumstances. We'll spin it however we need to. Just end this disaster. Jarix knew they were right, but the decision burned. He'd never lost before. None of them had. The Krath Empire was invincible, and that invincibility died in Earth's orbit. Prepare formal surrender terms, he ordered. Request negotiations with human leadership. 2 days later, the human delegation arrived. They came on a captured Krath shuttle, escorted by a dozen human fighters that danced around it like protective insects. They wore military uniforms, some still stained with combat. Many bore visible injuries, but refused medical attention. The scarred general led them. They met in what had been Jarix's command conference room. The humans sat across from the Krath officers, and the difference was stark. The Krath looked exhausted, defeated. The humans looked hungry. "Our terms are simple," the general began. "Complete withdrawal of all Krath forces from Earth and orbital space. Return of all prisoners and human technology you've captured. Reparations for damage caused to civilian infrastructure, to be paid in Krath technology and resources. And one final requirement." "Name it," Jarix said. "You will broadcast your defeat to the entire galaxy. You'll explain exactly what happened here. How you came to conquer Earth in hours, and how you lost in weeks. You'll describe how you were defeated not by superior technology, but by superior will. You'll warn every other species that thinks humanity looks like easy prey." Jarix felt anger flash through him. "You want to humiliate us?" The human general's scarred face didn't change expression. "You came to humiliate us. To crush us in hours and add us to your list of conquered worlds. We're returning the favor, with interest. The War Council will never agree to this. Then we'll keep killing you until they do. We can do this all year, all decade. We've fought wars that lasted generations. How long can your empire watch? Ships burn in Earth's orbit before they decide you're not worth the cost? Jarix looked at his fellow officers. They all knew the truth. The humans would do exactly what they promised. They'd fight until the craft left or until everyone died, and they wouldn't lose sleep over either outcome. "I'll recommend your terms to the War Council," Jarix said quietly. The human general stood. "You have 48 hours. After that, we start targeting your command ships specifically. We've learned which ones carry fleet leadership. You'll be first." The humans left. Jarix sat in silence, staring at the blue planet below. Earth was supposed to fall in hours. Instead, it had destroyed his fleet, his career, and possibly the Empire's reputation. The War Council, faced with mounting losses and potential rebellion in other systems, accepted the terms. They had no choice. Part 4. The broadcast went out on every major communication channel in the galaxy. Jarix sat before recording equipment, his military decorations removed, his uniform plain. Behind him stood members of the War Council, their presence a reminder that this humiliation came from the highest levels of Krath authority. "I am Fleet Commander Jarix of the Krath Empire. 60 days ago, I led an invasion force to the planet Earth. Our intelligence indicated a primitive world with fragmented leadership and minimal defense capability. We projected conquest within 6 hours." He paused, the words bitter. "We were wrong." The recording showed footage of the invasion. Craft ships descending, orbital bombardment, ground forces deploying. Then it showed what came next. Human resistance, improvised weapons, civilians fighting alongside soldiers. Cities turned into fortresses. Humanity possesses something we failed to account for. They are a species that has spent 10,000 years at war, not with external threats, but with themselves. They have perfected every aspect of combat through constant practice. When we attacked, we didn't face a primitive species learning to defend itself. We faced expert warriors applying their accumulated knowledge against a new enemy. More footage. Krath casualties mounting. Supply lines disrupted. Ships falling from orbit. Human boarding actions. The invasion collapsing not slowly, but rapidly, as humans adapted and counterattacked. We controlled our landing zones and nothing else. Every advance cost more soldiers than we could afford to lose. The humans learned. Our tactics reversed engineered our technology and turned our own advantages against us. They fought with weapons we gave them by defeating our forces. They modified civilian equipment into military hardware within days. They refused every opportunity to surrender. Jarix's voice remained steady, though the shame was evident. After 30 days, human forces began targeting our fleet directly. They launched boarding actions using converted civilian craft. They sent pilots on suicide missions to destroy our ships. They did all of this while still defending their planet's surface. The Krath Empire, conquerors of 47 systems, could not defeat a single world. The final footage showed the human delegation at the surrender negotiations. The scarred general. The injured soldiers who refused treatment. The cold determination in human eyes. We withdrew from Earth after 60 days. Our casualties exceeded 50%. We lost 15 ships. We failed to secure any strategic objectives. This broadcast serves as formal acknowledgement of our defeat and as a warning to all species in the galaxy. Jarix leaned forward, his 3 eyes focused on the camera. Do not underestimate humanity. They appear primitive, but they are the most dangerous species we have encountered. They don't fight for territory or resources. They fight because someone attacked their home. And they will never stop. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, thousands of species watched with shock. The Krath Empire had been a dominant force for generations. Their defeat sent ripples through established power structures. On Earth, humans watched the broadcast in public gatherings. Some cheered, some cried. Most simply felt relief that it was over. The scars would take years to heal. Cities lay in ruins. Millions had died, but they'd won. The human general, whose name was Chun and who'd been a schoolteacher before the invasion, stood before his own cameras. His message went out to humanity, not the galaxy. We paid a terrible price for our freedom. We lost friends, family, homes. But we proved something important. We proved that humanity won't break, won't bow, won't surrender our world to anyone. He touched the scar on his face. We've been fighting each other for our entire history. Maybe it's time we stopped. We know what we're capable of now. We've seen what we can do when we work together. The galaxy is watching us. Let's show them what humans can build, not just what we can destroy. The craft technology provided as reparations jump-started human space development by decades. Within a year, humanity had orbital stations more advanced than anything they'd possessed before. Within 2 years, they had FTL-capable ships exploring nearby systems. Within 5 years, they'd established colonies on 3 worlds. Other species watched this expansion nervously. The craft defeat had marked humanity as dangerous, but it had also marked them as powerful. Some species reached out diplomatically, eager to establish friendly relations before humanity became a threat. Others kept their distance, uncertain how to deal with a species whose response to invasion was total warfare. Xarix lived in exile, stripped of rank and honor. He wrote extensively about the campaign, analyzing every mistake, every miscalculation. His work became required reading in military academies across multiple species. The introduction to his final volume contained a warning that echoed his broadcast. We attacked humanity expecting fear and found fury instead. We expected chaos and found coordination. We expected surrender and found spite. Other species will make contact with humans in the years to come. Some will do so peacefully and find humanity can be reasonable, even generous. But if any species considers conquest, heed this warning. Humanity has spent their entire existence learning to fight. They know 10,000 ways to wage war because they've tried them all. They're not warriors because they love battle. They're warriors because they've never known peace. We gave them unity. We gave them purpose. We gave them a reason to stop fighting each other and start fighting together. Earth was supposed to fall in hours. Instead, they took it personally. They took us apart. And they took their place among the stars as the species you don't fight unless you're prepared to lose everything. 20 years after the invasion, humanity hosted its first interstellar summit on Earth. Delegates from 40 species attended, including, surprisingly, 3 from the reformed Krath Republic. The Empire had fallen, torn apart by rebellions and systems that saw humanity's victory as proof that the Krath could be beaten. General Chun, now retired and teaching history at a rebuilt university, attended as an observer. A young Krath approached him during a reception, nervous but determined. General Chun, I want to apologize for what my people did to your world. Chun studied the young alien. You weren't there. You don't need to apologize. But our leaders, our military, they made terrible choices. Yes, they did. And humanity made them pay for those choices. That's done. What matters now is what happens next. Chun gestured to the gathering of species talking, negotiating, building relationships. Your people fell, but they rebuilt as something better. We all have that choice. Build or destroy. For a long time, humanity only knew how to destroy. We're still learning to build. Maybe your people can teach us something about that. The young Krath relaxed slightly. Perhaps we can learn from each other. That's the idea. In orbit above Earth, human ships patrolled alongside vessels from a dozen species. The planet that was supposed to fall in hours had become a symbol of resistance, determination, and the danger of underestimating your opponent. Humanity had taken their place in the galactic community, respected and feared in equal measure. They'd proven they could fight. Now they were trying to prove they could do more than that. But every species in the galaxy remembered the Krath broadcast. Remembered what happened when someone attacked Earth. Remembered that humanity, given a reason to fight, would fight with everything they had. Earth was supposed to fall in hours. Humanity took it personally, and the galaxy would never forget.